Imagine a corporation today with its own private army of 250,000 soldiers, the power to declare war, and a revenue stream larger than entire nations. It sounds like dystopian fiction, but it was reality in the 1700. A single profit-driven company in a small London office, not a king or a conquering general, managed to seize control of one of the world's richest and most sophisticated regions. This wasn't a military steamroll. It was a slow-motion corporate takeover, sealed with ink, financed by bankers, and executed by exploiting a deadly game of political chess already in play. The Mughal mirage, and the first drop of blood. The story doesn't begin with British strength, but with the awe-inspiring, decaying grandeur of the Mughal Empire. In 1700, Emperor Aurangzeb ruled over 150 million souls, an economy worth a quarter of the world's GDP. The English East India Company, by contrast, was a fragile petitioner in a corner of Calcutta, begging for trade rights. Their first real military venture in 1686 against the Mughals was a disaster. They were crushed and had to grovel for forgiveness. The lesson was etched in corporate memory. Direct confrontation with the imperial giant was suicide. They would need a different, more insidious strategy, waiting for the giant to stumble on its own. The financial fortress of thread and silver. The company's true weapon wasn't the musket, but the monsoon season trade winds that carried Indian textiles to Europe. Forget spices. It was the insatiable hunger for brilliantly dyed, impossibly soft calicos and muslins that built the financial fortress. This trade generated staggering profits, creating a self-funding war chest. Crucially, the company perfected a system of country trade within Asia, moving goods between India, China, and Southeast Asia. The silver generated here meant they could purchase Indian goods without draining Britain of bullion. This financial sovereignty, independent of the British Crown, was the silent engine that paid for the first regiments of Indian soldiers, or sepoys, drilled and armed in the European fashion. The Godfather strategy. From merchant to political broker, the turning point was a mental pivot. The company stopped acting like a trader and started acting like a political godfather. The trigger was the 1740s War of Austrian Succession, which spilled into India as a proxy war with the French East India Company. Suddenly, control of a port wasn't just about commerce, it was about survival. A young clerk named Robert Clive saw the opportunity. Instead of just shipping textiles, they would ship security. By lending their disciplined sepoy battalions to feuding local princes, they could become kingmakers. The return on investment wasn't cash. It was the grant of tax-collecting rights over rich districts, a corporate fiefdom that blurred the line between a business and a government. The coup in the reins. Clive's Plassey payout, the ultimate corporate heist, was the Battle of Plassey in 1757. It wasn't a battle, it was a prearranged coup. The Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, had foolishly attacked the company's Calcutta fort, but Clive's real genius was in the boardroom, not on the battlefield. He conspired with the Nawab's disgruntled uncle and financiers, the Jagat Seth banking family, promising them power in exchange for treason. On a rain-soaked field, as the Nawab's French gunners failed to waterproof their cannons, his uncle, Mir Jafar, held back a third of the army. The victory cost Clive only a handful of men, but delivered the entire Bengal treasury. Overnight, the company became the richest power in the region, and Mir Jafar their puppet on a gilded throne. The wrecking ball of Diwani. Legalizing loot. Plassey gave the company cash, but the 1765 Treaty of Allahabad gave them a country. The defeated Mughal Emperor, a sovereign without a state, granted the company the Diwani, the right to collect taxes across the vast provinces of Bengal, Bihar, and Orissa. This was the moment the trading company shed its skin. It now controlled the public purse of 20 million people. The result was a catastrophe of greed. Company agents, suddenly tax collectors, bled the peasantry dry with ruthless efficiency to maximize quarterly dividends. The predictable famine of 1770 followed, killing an estimated 10 million souls. The company's response to the mass death, a report noting they had still exceeded their revenue targets, a chilling testament to the logic of a corporate state. The sepoy scalpel, recruiting India's own division. How did 30,000 British civil servants and officers control a subcontinent? They didn't. They outsourced conquest to Indians themselves. The presidency armies, particularly the Bengal army, were composed of high-caste Hindu sepoys and Muslim cavalry, recruited from specific regions that the British fetishized as martial races. These men weren't mercenaries for hire. They were inducted into a regimental cult of honor, with its own flags, uniforms, and a pension that was the envy of every peasant. The company's most brilliant and cynical move was binding these soldiers' pay and prestige directly to the company's stock price, creating a self-policing internal occupation force that conquered India with Indian blood and muscle. The Subsidiary Alliance, a doomsday clause by the 1790s, Governor-General Lord Wellesley perfected the legal trap that finished off India's independent kingdoms, the Subsidiary Alliance. It sounded like a generous protection offer. The company would station a permanent, crack military force inside a friendly state to guard against enemies. The catch: the local ruler had to pay a crippling subsidy for this protection, cede rich territories to cover the cost, and worst of all, disband his own army. A British resident would then be stationed at his court, a shadow ruler who dictated foreign policy. If the king refused this slow annexation, he was branded an aggressor and crushed. Hyderabad, Awadh, and Mysore all fell into this velvet-lined trap. Their treasuries drained to fund the very army that held them captive. The skeleton in the company's closet. The spice of extinction while political power was the headline. The gritty, brutal mechanics of a corporate monopoly created a quieter genocide in the background. In the spice-rich Malabar coast, the company's obsession with controlling the pepper trade led to a century of scorched earth warfare against local cultivators and the kingdom of Travancore. To break the price, they burned pepper vines, dismantled traditional farming networks, and imposed a monopoly price that destroyed local economies. The same pattern repeated with indigo in Bengal, where planters turned into feudal lords, forcing peasants through debt and violence to grow cash crops instead of food. This was the real-world cost of a shareholder-driven foreign policy, measured not in battles won, but in landscapes and livelihoods systematically destroyed. The final ledger entry. The crown takes over by 1857. The company's model was a ticking time bomb. Its relentless annexations, cultural arrogance, and the greased cartridges of the Enfield rifle, rumored to be coated in cow and pig fat, provided the spark for the Sepoy Mutiny. The ensuing rebellion was a visceral explosion of all the political, economic, and religious grievances the company had callously ignored for a century. The savagery of the conflict, including massacres on both sides, shocked Victorian Britain. The corporation had failed its core risk assessment. In 1858, the British government dissolved the company, transferring its army, its 1.5 million square miles of territory, and its 200 million subjects directly to the crown. The Raj began not with a conquest, but with a corporate bailout. The East India Company's story is a sobering reminder that power doesn't always wear a crown, it sometimes carries a ledger. It wasn't British steel that first subdued the subcontinent. It was a self-reinforcing cycle of corporate finance, political subversion, and outsourced military force, all answering to investors half a world away. Its legacy is the blueprint for a disturbing question. What happens when the pursuit of private profit is granted a sovereign license to kill? If you found this deep dive into corporate history valuable, make sure to subscribe and tell us in the comments what other boardroom battles you'd like us to unpack.